Moscow claims it is deliberately slowing its offensive in Ukraine in order to allow civilians to evacuate. Kyiv says different, that Russia is continuing to intensify its military cooperation in the country's eastern Donbas region with no regard for civilian lives.
Ворог продовжує використовувати тактику терору проти українського цивільного населення на захоплених територіях. Триває погіршення соціально-економічної ситуації на півдні та сході України.
In Donbas, the towns of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk have become pivotal battlefields. Russian forces are advancing from 3 directions to encircle them. These are among the last territories Ukrainian forces still hold in Luhansk. Moscow says it has also struck an arms depot in the Donbas region used to store shells for howitzers. Now, that's a crucial artillery weapon which Ukraine has been receiving from Western allies. Despite the escalation in airstrikes, Russia insists it's not chasing deadlines in Ukraine and claims it will achieve its goals. But that looks increasingly out of reach in Kyiv, where authorities are preparing to reopen an underground metro, which has been closed for months. The station was used as a shelter for thousands of civilians taking cover from airstrikes. Its relaunching is seen as a symbol of Ukrainian wresting back control of the city. Still, many residents have expressed reluctance to leave the shelter, owing to fears of its shelling resuming. Kyiv McQuillan joins us from Lviv in Ukraine. Kyiv, bring us up to date on the fierce fighting that's ongoing in Luhansk.
Yes, so the Ukrainian governor of the Luhansk region has given a grim warning. He says that maybe it's too late for some of the citizens of that city of Severodonetsk to be able to leave. We believe that up to 15,000 citizens are down there in shelters. That's according to Serhiy Haidai, this Ukrainian governor of that area. Basically, the city of Severodonetsk, as you mentioned there in your introduction, is on the eastern bank of the Severodonetsk River. It's surrounded on 3 sides right now by Russian forces. It's been taking very heavy pounding in the last couple of days. And the UK's Ministry of Defence says that Russian forces from the north and to the south of this tongue of land, which Ukraine holds in the Luhansk, are less than 25 kilometers away from each other. This is the stated goal of the Russians, is to try and encircle Ukrainian forces fighting down there in Luhansk. And basically, the Ukrainian military are in well dug-in positions in Severodonetsk, but they have to make a decision. Do they make a tactical retreat across the river? The bridge is down, they can't take their gear with them. Or do they stay and fight in a sort of Mariupol-style embattlement and siege of that city?
Yeah, Kieran, also, it's been 3 months to the day since Russia invaded Ukraine. Observers generally agree Ukrainian military has done really well to resist the invasion. Let's take stock here. What might the next 3 months look like?
Well, Jill, as you mentioned there, you wouldn't have believed it, that we would have actually been standing here 3 months into this conflict talking about this, the way things stood at the very beginning. No one would have believed that Russia would have invaded in the first place. But here we are. So let's take stock militarily, first of all. The Ukrainians believe that they can turn the tide of this war by August and they can win it by the end of the year. We heard that in an interview from Ukraine's head of military intelligence. This has now turned into a heavy, grinding, World War II style battle, duel of artillery down there in the Donbas. And the Russians have the advantage of the heavy arms. The Ukrainians need to get this weaponry in, and they need to get the training. It is coming in bit by bit from the west, these howitzers, etc., that you mentioned in the introduction. Ukraine's plan now is to try and wear the Russian forces down in the next 3 months as much as possible, get that training and get those weapons to the front line. Now, analysts say that the only way that Russia will come to the negotiating table is if it loses some of the land that it's gained in this latest incursion. I suspect we're looking at a long war of attrition here, and that there are dangers on both sides because of that. But this is the largest military campaign and war in mainland Europe that we've seen in the last 80 years.
Many thanks, Kieran McQuillan in Lviv, Ukraine, live for us.